Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Gosh, last week we were so busy. We had a great time in Montana, then went down into Birmingham with Ross Roberts, Joey Roberts, and Scott Webb. Had a great time there. Then on our way to Amarillo, had such a good time in Accelerate Church. Gosh, they were so hungry for the coming of the Lord. So just wonderful to see so many people excited about Jesus coming back. And that's why we're coming to you every week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord, and specifically the gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war. And we talk about this each week, though. The rapture is signless, but the second coming has tons of signs. So when you're seeing the players get on the field for a football game, you know there's about to be a kickoff. And boy, we're watching all the players for the Ezekiel 38 war gather in position, literally strategically in position for what's going to happen just after the rapture of the church. Wow, we don't have a lot of time, but we have a little bit of time. So what's the purpose of getting into end times? When you see the play clock in a football game, you accelerate, you don't slow down. It makes the plays are more critical. So as you see the finish line, you run faster, not slower. So the whole purpose of this is not an escape theology, it's a hustle theology. So let's look at what's happened around Israel. Several things that are very, very amazing and important have happened. We'll start, first of all, of course, with Gaza. Hamas firing rockets into Israel last week. Israel retaliated again. It seems to be an ongoing process, but things are kind of a real shift is in the air. Listen to how crazy this shift is. You know, you had Bahrain and United Arab Emirates last week make formal ties of peace with Israel. First two Arab countries since Egypt and Jordan years ago. Is absolutely amazing. Well, on the brink of that, on the heels of that, you have Kuwait. President Trump announced that Kuwait was looking at normalizing relations with Israel. And in the middle of that, you had Qatar say they were going to follow suit. I mean, that's just wild. So Qatar and Kuwait looking to do that. And then 2 days later, Sudan said they're going to normalize relations with Israel, which is pretty crazy. In the midst of this, there's been some negotiations going on that have gotten zero press whatsoever with Israel and Lebanon. They've been meeting on the border of Lebanon discussing border rights and offshore gas rights in the water. So, man, they're coming close to an agreement there as well. So there's several Arab nations in conjunction with Israel making some normal ties, which is pretty wild. I mean, I'm kind of shocked to see it happening like that, but so several things keep happening that are shocking me every single week. You've got Iran, that the International Atomic Energy Agency said they're bumping up centrifuges again as well. And the sanctions that America put on them again really were based on their ballistic missile program. So you had the EU even come out saying, hey, Iran's got to abide by these programs, specifically when it comes to ballistic missiles, because that's how bold the report was, that Iran wants to fire missiles at Israel. So I said even 2 weeks ago, watch Israel take out another convoy. Well, they did take out one more convoy since I've been with you of missiles coming from Iran down into Syria. I mean, that's pretty that you have that much stuff happening. This was one that was really interesting that kind of in conjunction with that is, remember last week I talked about Russia ramming one of our armored cars. Well, America has responded by sending 100 more troops into northern Syria, quite a few tanks and helicopters and some armament to protect the American troops there, because it looks like there is a kind of a buffer zone there where the Kurds are, and Russia's trying to enter into that buffer zone. So Russia's doing so many weird things. Remember we talked about the airplane that they kept buzzing last week as well. So Russia's doing crazy stuff in the midst of all this. It seems like the dark side is boldly yielding to the dark side even more. I mean, with that, you had China put out a video showing basically a practice attack on an American base in Guam. With that, China talked about, hey, they're ready to go to war with America. And then China said they're going to basically go into Taiwan. And there's always been talk of that. But the things that they said so blatant about China going into Taiwan and taking over Taiwan, pretty crazy. So, wow, you're seeing the setup for this. Then you had Turkey saying at the UN in the last few days, I mean, you even had Israel's ambassador walk out. Turkey was blatantly lying. Now, Turkey has specifically surrounded Israel and different nations, implementing different things and even putting money toward the Temple Mount, because Turkey said again, we want to call on all of Islam to ascend to the Temple Mount and take the Temple Mount from the Jews. So much is happening with that. You've got a lot happening with the COVID-19. You had the CDC coming out saying that their airborne predictions were incorrect when it came to coronavirus, and they were under pressure from the World health organization. So, man, lots of weird things are going on there. So the cool thing about this, Jesus said, when you see these things, lift up your heads. Your redemption's drawing nigh. The whole purpose of that is he wants the church excited. He wants you not to be downtrodden. When all these things are coming to pass, as an indication, we're about to see Jesus face to face. How cool is that? So with that, we're to be expectant. We're to be joyful. I talk about Colleen and I. We got married. When she was walking down the aisle, she didn't have her head bowed and go, "Oh my God, I'm about to marry that guy. What's up with this?" No, she was excited, expectant. The whole purpose of end time preaching about how close we are to the rapture of the churches is to get you expectant. He loves you so much. All this is about how much he loves you. So, event after event, you had another explosion in Lebanon. I mean, this is crazy. Not like the one that was in Beirut the other day. The one that was in Beirut was massive. This was another, actually, ammunition plant that blew up again as well. So I think there's a lot going on to keep Israel safe right now, that's for sure. So what do? We always go to the scripture to look what's going on. England wants to be involved too as well. But remember, Israel made a nation in 1948. Jerusalem won back in 1967. Jesus said the group of people that sees those two events will not pass away till all is fulfilled. So that's us. We're it. So then you have many more signs other than those two main ones. But Jesus said if you just see those two. But you've got the Hebrew language restored. You got the Ethiopian Jews brought back. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. You have the revival of the Roman Empire. You have 172 different species of predatory birds. I mean, that's crazy. And then these ones that have happened in the last year and a half. I mean, you had fish show up in the Dead Sea. That's remarkable. Then you had foxes show up on the Temple Mount. That's just a few weeks ago. Then you had the ritual baths around the Temple Mount fill up with water. It's pretty amazing. And then you had Rabbi Itzhak Kaduri that got saved about 11 years ago, about 15 years ago, I'm sorry. Jesus appeared to him. And then after he got saved, he prophesied that just before the coming of the Lord, Israel would be ruled by two Benjamins. Just the last few weeks, Israel's got Benjamin Netanyahu and Benjamin Gantz. In fact, Benjamin Gantz came to America this week with a whole list of armament that he wanted, specifically more armament for their F-35s, because the United Arab Emirates look like they're going to get F-35. So we're always trying to be a friend to Israel. So all this stuff is happening right before our eyes. Many more men will be lovers themselves. So you have all these signs, tangible physical signs of the coming of the Lord. I love how nice the Lord did it so it'd be easy to understand. And it's all good news. There's only 5 things about the coming of the Lord, no bad news. He said, don't want you deceived. I don't want you troubled. I want you happy, hopeful, and comforted. So Paul wrote those things to the church of Thessalonica so they would have comfort. They would be excited because the king's about to come back. Well, you got signals. You had blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles. That's radical. 4 in a row, and that's the college of Tetrad. When's the last time you had 4 in a row on Passover and Tabernacles? Well, 1967, 1948, and 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. Remarkable, coinciding with those dates with God dealing with the Jews. So, man, we're living in the time of all times. This is the time to accelerate. This is the time to go forward. This is the time to hustle, do whatever we can. So you had that. You had the Bethlehem Star last year, which that's amazing. Jupiter, Regulus, Venus come together. Same thing at the birth of Jesus. You had the same thing last year. NBC Nightly News had a celestial event. So you got the heavens signaling to us that the king's about to come. How nice of the Lord to give us tangible physical signs and then signals in the heavens. You had Mars do a flyby of the sun, happens 5 times in a century. Went down directly over the Temple Mount at sundown. Planets formed a sickle, the moon formed a sickle. Orion changed its instrument to hammer. He had hammer and sickle on the same day. So what is that? The king's about to come back. What do? Help your local church, help your local pastor, be engaged, be more involved. We don't back away. We're all the more on deck to do what the Lord wants us to do. We have a lot of harvesting to do in a short period of time, so let's go for it. Man, aren't we blessed? Aren't we amazed that we're about to see Jesus face to face? Wow, what a wonderful time to be finished off the church age, just before the entrance of the King. It's amazing. Everything that's happening is just like Joseph revealed himself to his brethren at the very end. It's all set up for the King of Kings and Lord of Lords to do that right here at the end. Man, have a blessed, awesome week. Many things are happening so fast around Israel. Come join us this next week. We'll get into it. Colleen and I thank you for your prayers and for your support. We so appreciate it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next Wednesday. God bless you.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.